Ladies and gents, it's Pete Thorne. Welcome to the studio. Hey, from my friends at Origin Effects, it's the Halcyon Green Overdrive. So you know what this is based on. I already know you know what this is based on. But it goes so far beyond the original Screamer style pedals. It's way, way more versatile, and I'm going to tell you all about it and show you why and how. So one of the things that's great about an original Screamer is that it'll actually tighten up an amp that's farty and loose. Like even if it's gainy and it's kind of like flubbing out a little bit, you can hit it with a Screamer, add more gain, boost into the front end, and yet somehow the sound gets tighter. They lop off so much bass that it's like filtering low end into the front end of the amplifier while adding mid-range, and sometimes overdrive and level and boosting. So that tends to tighten up an amp while giving you more sustain, more mids that helps your guitar cut through a mix. And it kind of works on like high gain amplifiers, and it also works on lower gain, like let's say American style amplifiers that have great big bottom end and great big top end, but not a lot of mids and can kind of fart out when you turn them up high. Think Stevie Ray Vaughan. He used to run Fenders like pretty hot, cranking them up real good and loud, and then hit them with a Screamer, and he could play on the neck pickup with heavy strings, and it was still a relatively tight sound. Or think metal guys that use tube Screamers to boost high gain amplifiers that would be flubby unless you put the Screamer in front, lops off low end and keeps things tight. Okay, so all that is great about Screamers. It's what we know and love about them. It's awesome. But the only thing is, if you play an original Screamer and then maybe go to like a neck single coil pickup and roll the volume down on the guitar, the sound can get kind of thin because it's not like the pedal would adapt to your playing or adapt to the, less output and the thinner pickup sound when you roll the volume down on the guitar. This one does. There's these two different adaptive settings in here that allow you to get a much fuller bass and clearer top end treble signal when you roll down the volume on your guitar. I would equate that sound much more with something like maybe a Jan Ray or like a Timmy or something. Even a Blues Driver, they do that quite well. But never have I found a Screamer that does that. That's got nice full bottom end, clear top end, and also the mids the Screamer are known for. This pedal does that. You got this 3-position switch right here, position 1 and position 2 for the adaptive settings, and then the original settings. You can totally get the sound of like original 808 style pedals. And then there's also the switch that goes from 808 to mod here. That's like an original 808 style, full mids, a little bit darker on the top end sound. Switch it over to mod, it gets a little more cutting and a little more modern sounding to my ears, and it's really nice like for making the guitar signal cut right through. Okay, the other thing about a Screamer that you either love or hate is the clean signal. There's always some clean mixed in on original Screamers. It can sound actually really good if you're playing into a dirty amp. It helps keep some definition in the sound, having a little bit of that sort of clean mixed in. With this pedal, you've got a dry control here. This allows you to mix in as much or as little as you want of your dry signal, so it's totally variable. And the other 3 controls on the pedal here are the original controls you would find on a Screamer, which are a level, a drive, and a tone. So I use the pedal with a couple different guitars. I use neck pickups, bridge pickups, single coils, humbuckers. There's a JCM 800 back there. That's what I used for the rhythm guitars on the song at the beginning of the video. And I wanted to show that because the Screamer boost in an 800 is a classic kind of hard rock sound. So I used a friend's 800 for the rhythm guitars. The lead guitars, on the cleaner lead guitar, the first one that comes in, that's the clean channel on my PT100. And on the second gainy solo, the ripping solo, that is channel 3 on my PT100. No boost on or anything on the amp. I'm just boosting it with this pedal, hitting the front end, and adding lots of, well, I wouldn't say lots of drive, but I did have the drive up like around 11 o'clock. Well, the level was up around 3. I'm going to break down all the sounds from the song at the beginning of the video now so you can clearly hear what I'm doing. There'll be text up on the screen to explain what's going on with each part. I'll also play a bit more through the pedal, demonstrate the adaptive circuitry, and all that good stuff. Okay, let's get on with it. It is the Halcyon from my good friends at Origin.
Okay, so I just recorded the first part in the song at the beginning of the video, and kind of the claim to fame for this pedal is that it's adaptive when you get dynamic with your guitar. When you roll down the volume, you won't lose as much low end, and it won't get filtered out as much as with like a typical 808 or maybe TS9. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. It sounds nice and tight when I've got the pedal, set with the level at about 2 o'clock and the gain at about 11 o'clock, or distortion drive at about 11 o'clock. Tightens up the amp. So let's listen to what it sounds like with the pedal off and then on. This is kind of that 800 thing where it's kind of sitting there, but if I do this, adding some gain, boosting the amp, tightening things up, sounds really good in the low end. But often what can happen is you lose low end, and you lose, if you roll down the volume on your guitar, it just doesn't sound that good anymore. So when I went to the neck pickup in the little sort of B section of the song, I rolled down the volume way down on the guitar and got a kind of quasi, dirty clean sound. So I'll show you what that sounds like with this sound. So. Okay, so now check out what happens when I go to the original 808 setting without the adaptive for this rolled down sound. Hear how it's kind of unnaturally, like, without low end? How do I say it? It's like unnaturally thin for that particular sound. But as soon as I turn on the adaptive circuitry, got more lows, more fullness, and sounds much better for that part. Now, if I go to the neck, that's the kind of the first step in the adaptive setting. I can get even a little bit fatter. So let's try that. And once again, back to the stock 808. So that's kind of the whole shebang right there. That's the whole enchilada. It kind of, keeps the low end and keeps it nice and full and whatnot. It's like a more natural guitar sound when you roll the volume down on the guitar. Now, if I turn the volume all the way back up, let me show you what the 3 settings sound like. Original, and then I'll go to the number 1 adaptive setting, and then the number 2, the most adaptive setting. So here's the original. Number 1. And number 2. So you notice there's less difference between all of those, and that's the whole adaptive thing. There's still a little bit of difference, but there's not nearly as much as when you roll the volume down on the guitar and you really hear the dramatic, sort of more fuller sound in the adaptive settings. So it's really cool. It just allows you to get a nice full sound and a little bit more of a realistic kind of usable dynamic on the guitar volume control when the pedal is on. So I just cut the second rhythm guitar part in the song at the beginning of the video. That's the one in the right channel. And I'm playing through my PT100. I got the gain on quite low on channel 3. Channel 2 and 3 are the same in this amp. So, but I'm running channel 3 with the gain on about 2.5. And I want to show you what this control does right here on the pedal. This is the dry mix control. So the dry mix control is going to let you blend in more dry signal. And that's really nice to have, but it's a fine line, because if you go beyond a certain point, it's going to start hitting the front end of the amp with more of that big, full, dry signal, and it's going to actually like sort of like flub up a little bit, So it's a fine line depending on how dirty you're running your amplifier. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to roll it all the way back and then turn it up slowly, and you'll hear what it does. Okay, so you can hear how it's got the tightest kind of sound down around, you know, maybe all the way down, but like it sounds really good just adding in a little bit of the dry signal, like at like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something like that. So it just depends what you want. You will get a fuller, bigger sound the further up that you bring it, just at the expense of some tightness, that's all. So just cut the first lead guitar part in the track at the beginning of the video, the kind of clean, mellow one, and I used this 3 single coil Sur Classic S here running into channel 1 of my PT 100 amp for this, going for kind of, you know, pushing a Fendery clean tone essentially. And I'm using the adaptive setting, the first adaptive setting for this sound, which is tending to add a little bit more low end overall to the tone, but also if I was to roll the volume down on the guitar, you would really hear the adaptive effect. So let's check that out. Let's hear what the sound sounds like, the difference between the mod setting on this switch right here and the 808 setting. Okay, so the kind of stock setting and then the modded setting that Origin gives you. I'll turn off the pedal, start with that, and then we'll go to the mod setting, and then we'll go to the 808. Okay, so the mod setting definitely has a little bit more aggressive top end. The neat thing with this pedal is that you can get that because it's got the adaptive settings on it, both adaptive setting number 1 and 2. You're still going to be able to get this full low end out of it. So it's like a really cool, it's like a different pedal. I mean, it's not an 808, it's got its own thing going on. Thanks for watching my video on the Halcyon Green Overdrive from Origin Effects. They've done a great take on the original Tube Screamer. It solves a lot of the problems with the original Screamer, especially not being able to get a nice, clean sound when you roll down on the guitar. The adaptive circuitry totally takes care of that, gets you a nice, full, clean sound with full bass, clear top end. Sounds just great. You can check it out further at the link that you find down there in the video description below. Click there, it'll take you to more info about the terrific Halcyon Green Overdrive from Origin, and also all the other great pedals from my friends at Origin. Please hit subscribe if you haven't hit the little bell beside the subscribe. You'll get an alert when I put out a new video. Take care, you guys. I'm Pete Thorne. Over now.